When I was a boy, I wanted to fly to the moon. I thought it held all of the answers that I was searching for. I thought that all of this baggage would be easier to carry in 83.3% less gravity. And I can still remember looking up at the night sky and convincing myself that this world could no longer satisfy, like feeling some sort of ancient connection to something that I didn't know, something that I couldn't find. Continuously searching for life among life, but no matter how hard I tried, I found myself continuing, like historic explorers plotting trips to the unknown, except my life wasn't close to the park and back, but there's no stopping a boy with a mission. And my mission, it was celestial. It was spatial. It was stressful, but this vessel was more than just a vessel. It was my chance to escape. So I dragged the cardboard boxes that were too heavy to carry. My neighbors dismissed the scene as another boy playing imaginary, but me? Well, I ripped the string off my favorite kite and used it to pull materials behind my bike. I took the tape out of my dad's dusty old toolbox and started taping seams to seams, cutting and recutting and taping and stapling. Around and around, higher and higher, till I had to climb the roof of my house to put the cap on. 2 layers of tape around for a proper brace. I cut a hole in the side and punched it out so I could watch the stars go by. I took the legs off an old chair and stapled it to the cockpit. It was a little loose, but it'll do. And I pinned pictures of Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin next to the steering wheel that I pulled off my old Power Wheels. With each strip of tape, I fell further into my own lie, that life could be found in the absence of life, that substance could be found in a void. But please remember, I was just a boy, and I made a spacesuit out of old air conditioner tubes and used a fishbowl as my helmet. I had tubes coming out of my backpack and into my suit, and I called it recycled air. It was a stale smell that reminded me of my grandma's carpet. Old, and stained, and shag. But she was in love with my grandpa, and their prized possession was an apple tree that they planted on bent knees. He used to tell me that his life was full of regrets, but that when he met her, his life was reset. And I drew a picture of my first steps on the moon. I stapled it to a tree and carved in the trunk a bid farewell to everything that I never loved. In Houston, I think we're ready for launch. In 3, 2, 1, and I can still feel the force on my lungs. So heavy that I couldn't breathe for what seemed like an eternity. And I saw a bird. It gave me a weird look as I flew by. Like, who's this guy? Right? And I can still remember looking at my legs as I floated through zero gravity, hands still clenched to my seat, white-knuckled and impossible to release. And for the first time in my life, I saw the world in all its beauty as the thrusters corrected trajectory. And I whispered one last goodbye. Here's to the hopelessness you've instilled within me. Houston, I have a problem, and you can't solve it over transmission. So why don't you switch to radio silence? Because I'm switching to radio silence. And there's something a little frightening about being alone with my thoughts, questioning, wondering, and wishing, and what could have been, and my feelings and insecurities. But I can't just keep them hidden beneath frantically covering bad memories with fleeting things. And I spent 3 days thinking about what went wrong. And that was enough for me to see that those things, they no longer shape me. And on the third day, I braced for impact. And I wondered if they braced for impact. Like hearing his promises again and again, like did they really believe? And would I have had my hands like over my neck and bent in my knees until he was finally seen? Or would it have taken me like squeezing my finger through the hole in his hand for me to believe? I squeezed my head through that fishbowl and sealed it with tape. I felt the heat as the moon's gravity pulled me, chair shaking, my hands grasping for any stability. And in the middle of it all, I watched the cat pop off the front and fly past my window. And I thought to myself, oops, I guess 2 layers of tape wasn't quite the proper brace. So the cabin walls, they started ripping, and I watched everything around me slowly unraveling. My destiny, breaking seam by seam, until, frankly, the only vessel left was me. And the last thing I remember was when I hit. Boom. It wasn't the greatest welcome, but I survived it. And when I woke up, I spent months just jumping and floating and creating and exploring. I claimed peaks as my own. I set up a greenhouse full of potatoes. I chiseled rocks into statues of aliens just to freak out future generations. I made dust angels at the bottom of the sea of tranquility and had intimate conversations with the shapes of me. I took the dust of the ground and let it fall between the fingers of my spacesuit and called it feeling something. But there is an unmistakable reminder of everything I had left, still tethering me within its orbit. A pale gray is safe, but it's nothing compared to color in all its beauty. And stale air will keep me alive, but it's nothing compared to a deep breath among trees. And I tried. I tried to claim the moon as my home, but that reality was much too dense to bend, and I grew really sick of eating potatoes. I shouted from the mountains of the moon, only to have it silenced by the void between me and you. It was absence. It was quiet. But you became my hope. You see, I jumped off of those peaks, but I floated for too long. I tried to get lost in space, but the gravity, it was too strong. And my eyes, they swirled with the clouds as I watched them from the throne I carved out of moonstone. I could no longer justify living alone for the sake of avoiding the lows. There are no heights without depths, and the depths, they aren't as dark as they seem. Light streams still reach, no matter how far away I believe them to be. There's no stopping a boy with a mission, right? But what about when his mission has ceased? In Houston, if you are listening, please, don't switch to radio silence like at the beginning. I know it's been a long time since we've last spoken, but if you can hear this through the static, I want you to know that I didn't give in to this hopelessness that I created for myself. Despite the words I scream, I know I'm not alone and I never will be. I started gathering debris. I pulled old rovers sent from your world, from our world, and I chiseled rocks into instruments Despite their rough and useless appearance, they built me a way home. Whether I ever get there or not is another question. But I want you to know that I built this new vessel on a dream and a hope to find a place where I had once called home. That's it.